No.
Still the same.
Ben, can you drive to New Jersey and help her out?
I mean, we could elect to have someone read it for her.
That be okay, Jessica? Maybe tell us in chat. Can we have someone else read it? Still the same. It's the same. Thumbs up if somebody else can read it for you.
The droid talking.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, try and drop the volume.
I actually unplugged my speakers. So my volume will not be issue.
Large only better.
Really, yeah, but we can understand you, but it's still got that Charlie Brown essence to it.
I have no idea what this is. Maybe I'm gonna return this webcam. Because I don't know how to set up a separate mic. So,
Is your microphone close to your speakers? If so, try to move it away.
the microphone is up here on the webcam. The speakers are over here. Right now, the speakers are actually unplugged. I'm using my monitor speakers. So if you can't hear me, not to hear. I have no idea. This always happens to me.
Maybe she can go in and out and come back on her phone and read it from her phone.
I could connect from my phone. That would take 5 seconds. Give me 1 second. So good.
Maybe somebody else can read it for her.
She's dialing in.
Yeah.
She might solve it in a sec.
She's got to give us permission for that.
Okay.
She
And
hasn't given
also
us
to
permission for that.
one can read it like the writer. who wrote
Exactly.
it.
That's why. So we asked her. She did not give permission. So she's trying.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Just make sure you mute your computer microphone once you're dialed in.
Oh, okay.
Wow, wait.
Ooh, that's different. Yeah, there you go.
Let me try. Wait. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yay!
Yay!
Okay. I'm just doing it from my phone. Okay, so I'll start. Oh, by the way, Susan, this is not for the anthology. I have a different
Oh, okay.
story.
I'm
for
sorry.
It's okay. Is this the location? There's $150,000 in the vault. Is this lower than our 200? This is lower than our $250,000 minimum, Vanessa said. Paige anxiously replied, I know, but we're running out of time, so we'll take the usual and we'll deal with it later. For now, scan the area and transform into a guard. There are 2 guards in the front and 5 in the back. I have access into their mainframe and I added myself into their system. Paige relaxed. Okay, I'll be on standby with my computer. I set the clock for 35 minutes. Failure is not an option. Affirmative. Vanessa leaped from the brick rooftop to the adjacent building. The connection wires hanging from the back of their head soon turned into a modern shag haircut. The once electric violet eyes were now a dark brown. White nanofibers sprouted across their metal and bolt exterior, creating a layer similar to skin. Their new appearance was a white man in his late 20s, dressed like the guards in Viacom Financial, the place they were robbing. Using the camera's blind spots, Vanessa walked up to the steel padlock door. The electric pulses from their hand disrupted the lock, releasing its tight shut. Vanessa was in. The building's internal temperature was lower than most, and each floor had stretched walls covered in reflective glass. Vanessa ran down the steps till they reached the main floor. Jack Thompson, Vanessa's current form, had to appear like he was in a rush. Shift rotations occurred every 45 minutes, which was 2 minutes ago. "You're late," Brian, the lieutenant guard, stated. Jack replied, "I'm sorry, I got caught up with my kid. She's a newborn. I had to wait for my wife to come home." "A newborn? Is it your first one?" Ryan perked up in interest. Jack answered, "Yes, it's extremely nerve-wracking, but my wife and I plan to have more kids." Pulling out an Italian leather wallet, Ryan unfolded to a picture of his family home in Venice. His 3 boys and 1 girl stood out in the front. "I understand, I'm a big family man myself. I have 4 wonderful kids. They really are something. Elisa will be 4 this year." Ryan smiled and patted Jack on the back. "You'll be a good father, Jack." Is it a boy or a girl?" Ryan walked Jack to his post. He reminisced about when Lorenzo, his firstborn, had taught him the beauty and struggles of being a first-time parent. Ryan patted Jack's back one more time before leaving him at his post. "Don't be late again, Jack." "Yes, sir." Jack nodded. Ryan Cifelli, 36-year-old man with 4 kids, an Italian family man, lieutenant guard of Viacom Financial. Access obtained. Paige asked through her earpiece, "Were you able to gain access?" "Affirmative. I placed a bug on Lieutenant Guard to track his movements. I also copied his badge information to reach further access points. We have less than 29 minutes. Paige boasted, "That's my Vanessa. No one does it like me." A loud banging at the door disrupted her glow. Paige's laptop had been sitting on the rooftop floor with an internal tracing map of Viacom Financial fully displayed. The man was dressed in a loose janitor's coat, in which he soon unlocked the door. Quickly grabbing her bag, Paige pulled out a shaker pint wrapped in a scarf. "Hey, what is a young girl like you doing up here?" the janitor asked upon seeing her face. Paige was used to being mistaken for a teen. Her doe eyes appeared to be like a pool of innocence. The many freckles on her cheeks did little in helping her look older on her medium tan skin. Glancing at her body, the old janitor took notice of her small waist and accentuated hips. "This is no place for a young woman. I'm Peter, by the way." Disgusting. "I'm sorry," Paige cried. "I recently lost my mother. She was my only parent, and I wanted to find a tall building to spread her ashes. She really enjoyed the beautiful skies and how skyscrapers also got to be a part of that. Now she's an angel in heaven and gets to be with the sky too." Paige clung onto the shaker pint as she concealed it as an urn, his face scrunched in pain when listening to her story. "Take as long as you need, baby girl. I'll leave the door locked so no one bothers you." He left readily and smiled before locking the door. Paige pulled out her laptop when she heard the door clash. "Sorry, there was a minor disturbance," Paige relayed over the mic. "People are so stupid. After all, humans are beings driven by emotion and easy targets for manipulation." And that's it. I'm done. Now I feel I'm gonna just use my phone.
Anybody want to start it off for Jessica?
I'll start it off.
Go for it.
I read her little short story and I didn't get, everything was happening so fast, just like she was reading it really quick. I got really interested when they shaped it from what they were to that. But what really got me is that closing line. Humans are so stupid. They're so emotional. That there wanted me to hear more. I love the way you set up the scene, Jessica. And in the beginning, I was just following all of the information you was giving us. But that last line about, I don't have my glasses on, but it had to do with they played on humans' emotion and got exactly what they wanted. So I have to say I'm intrigued. I want to hear more. And slow down when you read. Slow down so we can take it in. I knew what you were talking about because I read it, but slow down when you read so we can take in those rich characters you're creating.
Anyone else?
I have something
Will.
to add.
Go for it.
So it reminded me of a lot of this. You've probably seen it, Ghost in the Shell. That it's a anime movie from the 90s or 80s, I believe.
I know Ghost in the
Yeah.
Shell.
So it reminded me a lot of that. Very familiar, even the opening scene and everything else. So I'm kind of curious where this story might be going differently from that story, or how inspired it is by Ghost in the Shell itself. I only seen the movie once, so I can't comment. I'm not like a huge fan of it, but it does have similarities to it. But I'm just like wondering, was this really heavily inspired by that movie?
Crazy enough, so I know about Ghost in the Shell because I'm interested in cyberpunk, but I've actually never watched the movie or its inspiration. So this is just the opening scene. So the rest of it is going to be, everything shifts later on. There's actually not very much similarities. I would have to read back on what Ghost in the Shell is about, but it wasn't.
Well, the opening scene just involves her breaking in somewhere and killing some mafia boss or something like that.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. There's no killing in the beginning.
All right. One thing I probably would, not sure what to add to this. I think it does need more development. Everything's moving so fast. I think you do need the audience to, as Lola mentioned, let the story kind of breathe and let the audience get to know these characters a bit more. And what's the motivation behind them robbing this bank in the first place? Because it'd be interesting to know at first before we jump into the action. Or as the more you develop the story, maybe you could reveal it through the action of why they're robbing the bank or how their actions are. And I'm kind of curious, the person on top of the rooftop, is she Android too?
Mm-hmm.
So no. So I explained this to Bobby because Bobby asked about this. So Paige is not an android. Paige is actually the creator of Vanessa. Vanessa is not a she. Vanessa is actually a gender. They, them, because they have transformative properties. So no, they're not both androids. And I'll take into consideration, because I was asked about the motivation thing before. So I'll try to put a hint in earlier so that makes it a little bit clearer. But that's later, that's like explain the next 500 words. But I'll put it in earlier so it's a lot clearer for the reader to understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else?
You have Ben and Carrie with their hands up.
Thank you. Ben?
I was going to carry on with what Will was talking about with terms of motivation. When I thought that they were both androids, that made me very interested, because I think if you have a human who's trying to rob a bank, that's kind of predictable. We heard that story, but if there are two androids stealing a bank, that's something unique. I haven't really heard a story that's like that. And that's where your whole motivation comes in, because then the reader is like completely engrossed, like, why are they stealing this bank? You know, that's a really cool idea. One thing you could do, like I think in the fifth paragraph, they say they're dressed like guards in YM Financial, the place they were robbing. I think you can just cut the place they were robbing, because I think you should keep the reader engrossed on what's happening, because you want to reveal a little bit and then show some more and then reveal a little bit and show some more. I think there's a point where we kind of get the point where they're robbing it and we don't need to be told that they're robbing it. So that's another thing. Another thing is to maybe just spend some little bit more time developing it. Also, I like what Lola said about human beings are driven by emotion, easy targets for manipulation. That's fantastic. And I think you can play with that even more with the the point where the android turns into Ryan and is talking with Jack, and they're kind of talking about newborns. I think you started with manipulation, but I think you can even go even further, where he's using these robots are designed to manipulate people into doing stuff. Like it'd be crazy. Like, what if Ryan manipulates Jack into helping him steal the stuff? That'd be crazy, right? That's kind of that level of manipulation, and kind of watching these androids take advantage of human beings for a possible motivation that we don't know about. So yeah, I thought that's a very interesting story.
Carrie?
All right. Jessica, I really like the story. I particularly like the dialogue. It's something that I'm really working on, so I really enjoyed that. As a heist flick, consider that there should be a level of mounting tension. Because if you've got somebody that comes in and they can just do whatever they want and everything's just a cakewalk, then why even talk about it? So you've got the opportunity where Vanessa / I forgot the character's name, Jack, actually meet Ryan, the lieutenant. So at first, the lieutenant's pissed off. Hey, you're late, and there's an anger, and, will he be or she be uncovered? And it just would take a couple little words here and there. And then all of a sudden you soothe it with, my kid had to wait. He was sick, wait for my wife to show up. And then all of a sudden, the hard edge of the lieutenant guard starts to soften. And all of a sudden the stress of the scene starts to come down. And, we see that she's going to progress on through with the rest of the heist. But a heist needs some sort of mounting tension, whether if you're going to do that later, then obviously you don't need it here. But I was thinking that this was an opportunity that you could exploit with just a few couple words there, and just a couple descriptive words of the characters as they make their first interaction. So just a thought.
Thank you. Lydia?
Mine are just really more questions because I agree. I like the story. I read it and then I read it twice right before the meeting. So then you read it fast, which is kind of how I read it. So it made sense somewhat. But I had two questions. The first one is, when you were talking about the amount of money that they robbed, that it was 150 and not 250, and you said you'll just do the usual. So the usual is 250. So I don't know what usual is, right? And then the next I think it's the next paragraph, when Vanessa jumps off the building or jumps off the rooftop. You start out talking about Vanessa jumps off the rooftop, and then mid-sentence, mid-paragraph, it became their head changed to the wires, changed their cut or whatever. And then the rest of the paragraph was talking about their and not her. So I was just asking, did they both jump, or if one did it, the other affected the other? I don't know. But those are the only two things that made me have to go back and look. Did I read that correctly? But other than that, I like your story.
Thank you. Should I answer the question? I can.
Well, the question was it a singular person that jumped off the roof, or when they jumped off the roof and it became there and one of them changed, the other one changed?
So the there is because Vanessa uses they, them pronouns.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's there. So it's only
Okay.
one person jumping. And the usual is not, it's new. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The subtitles where people put theirs. I got it now. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other part, what was it? Oh, the usual is not 250. They usually take a percentage of the amount that is located in the place.
Okay.
So that's why. The usual is usually, I think, about 50K, because they take about 20% of what's located in the vault.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I was just quick question. Is this the end of the story, or are you going to continue the story?
I still got like 10,000 more words.
All right, great.
So it's technically the beginning. That's why I feel like, because I know that we're only supposed to share like 750 to 1,000 words, but most of the rest, because I kind of just wanted, like in the other sense, like most of the time I kind of just drop the reader into a lot of what's going on, and then like a lot of it becomes a little bit clearer here and there. I feel like the next 500 to 600 words would have cleared up a lot of some of the questions people would have had. But I'll put more hints in between so it's a little bit easier for the reader to go through and see what's happening.
Okay.
So there's still a lot to go.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Last call.
I have a few things to add.
Go for it.
To really engage the reader, I think you do have to make it like have us care for the characters at the same time. Although like bank heists are really exciting, I think what really levels it up is when people care about the characters and they don't want to get caught, and it's a point where like, you know, are they getting caught or not? And you have to build that tension for the audience, and for the tension to build, we got to get to know these characters in the first place. But you could do that while, you know, the heist is going on, because maybe you could show like they care for each other. She doesn't see this android as just android. She sees this person as a friend, and reveal that as the bank heist is going on. And I do think the interaction between the guard and the robot, I think it needs a little more fixing, because I don't know, it was a little too touchy-feely from when I was reading it. I don't know. I work around other men, so I don't know. They're not really that touchy-feely at all. So, Lola?
Yeah, I have a question since we're going back. When she says disgusting, who's disgusting? The janitor, because he notices her accentuated shape and body. So I'm thinking, you know, because she looks so young and he's a janitor, is he going to hit on her or say something inappropriate? But because she knows how to manipulate, that's why I wasn't clear that they both were aliens or droids or whatever, but you're saying that the one on the roof is a human who's manipulating everybody. And I understand, what did you say, agender, so you can use them, them, they, theirs, those, it, and no he or she's, but you got to let us know in the beginning, because then I would understand that they're not using he and she, the pronoun is they or their, then we know it can be one person. But all of that is fascinating, because I'm really engaged and want to know more about these characters. What everybody else was saying set us up so we can understand that you're using a different kind of language that the reader can start learning from the beginning as we start reading. Just clarifying some. So who was saying disgusting? Who was disgusted? You said disgusting.
Paige.
Okay.
Paige
She's
said
linking it, or she
Well,
said it?
First, I'm not sure Will was finished, but second, I'll answer that quickly. Disgusting, it was her saying it, and it was about the janitor, and it was about the way that he had changed his language. So if you paid attention to language in the dialogue, he first calls her a young girl, and then he changes it to say young woman, and then he goes and continues by introducing himself as to who he is. So it was mainly for the shift of the interaction. That's why.
Because you say she usually looks younger than what she is. So he picked up on, because I was trying to follow that. Yeah, the face.
But like, then it goes into how she actually looks, the rest of her body. And that goes into the
being
switch.
a young woman. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Something I want.
And then back to what Will was saying.
I think she had more depth, because I keep forgetting the characters on the rooftops name, but Faith.
Vanessa?
No.
Or Jack. They're the same person. Or Paige. There's
Paige, yeah.
Yeah.
So is Paige like a hacker or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. I think we could also build upon with the janitor interaction. Maybe she knows that this janitor is a perv. Maybe she looked through his internet history, and that's how manipulate him. Also, maybe even the security guard, maybe she's able to find out what this security guard's background is and everything else. I think that could add a little more depth to page and knowing everything about all these guards.
Okay.
So-
Ladies
so
and
Paige-
gentlemen, we need to wrap this up very shortly.
Okay, I'll say.
No.
Okay, wait.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
We
so-
have
so
we
Paige-
need the next 40 minutes for Brad and Ben's presentation. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I just answer the end of that question and then I'm done?
Okay,
Okay,
I
so-
swear.
I'll be quick. So Paige does actually know all the information about what's going on. A lot of the story focuses on using social engineering as a prompt for manipulation in order to get through the thing. So that's why you'll see like a lot of those interactions be the way that they are, is because they actually do know a lot of information about the people around them. They're using that information in order to deceive other people and manipulate certain situations in order to get what they want. So
Got
I don't know
that.
if you caught it.
Got it.
Did anybody get that?
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it.
Whoa, that was
got
at
it.
90 miles an hour.
I got it. Great
Okay.
job.
Jessica, thank you very much for participating in this portion. I'm incredibly proud of what you've done. Perhaps next time when you send down a story, you can say it's not for the book anthology, so that the person that introduces you has all the information. Thank you very much. I'm turning the meeting over to Brad now. This was like really intense. So Brad, can you slow us down a little bit?
Sure can. And Jessica, I knew Jessica's story was not from the anthology, so I could have set that up better. I apologize for not explaining that when I sent it out to everybody, but it's clear now, and we can go back and read it again and know that it's different. But thank you, Jessica, for sharing your story. And now we're going to jump into workshop mode, which will be another tandem session between myself and Ben. And the basic premise of what we want to talk about today is that if you're working on a story for the anthology, the second draft is due on May 10th, which is 4 days from now. If you're not working on a story for the anthology, it's still, what we're going to talk about still applies, especially if you're writing on a deadline ever. But my perspective is going to be more as someone who has done very little with their story since they got their feedback back on the first draft and is now scrambling and has big changes to make in not a lot of time. And then Ben's perspective will be more for people who haven't been putting it off quite so much, but still want to put a little bit more polish on their story. He'll offer some simple things that you can do that'll potentially have a big impact. So I was thinking about how to go about this, how to advise, really for myself, how I could go about overhauling my story in 4 days. And I was reminded of the fact that I just finished my first month on a new job. And it was a job that I knew was going to be challenging, but I didn't know how hard it would be. And after like 3 days of working there, I wanted to quit because I was so overwhelmed. It's a consulting firm, and I was put on a big project, a year-long project with the firm's biggest client on my first day. And I had a bunch of training to go through for the consulting firm, a bunch of training to go through for the client. I didn't understand the client's industry. I had a huge to-do list just of project work, and I was totally overwhelmed. And what ended up beginning to change things for me was I sat down and I made a list of all the things that I thought I needed to do. And then I went to my boss and I said, I can't do all this. I'm going to be playing catch up for the duration of my time at this company. And he helped me go through the list and say, you're not really responsible for this. We have experts who do this kind of thing. And he looked at other things on my list. He's like, yeah, we have training. The client has training. The client's training is more important. If you're late on our training, that's fine. And little by little, we started to chip away at my to-do list until I realized that there was a lot more I didn't have to do than there was that I did have to do. And after that point, my panic melted away and I started to feel like I could actually do the job. So with this story, I mean, maybe the stakes aren't quite as high, but we still want to have a good story at the end of all this. And chances are you have issues with your story, things you want to make better. If someone was assigned to you as a story critic, they have feedback that you might want to incorporate. You may have shared the story with a bunch of other people who also gave you feedback. And you want to make everybody happy. You want to make sure that you put thought into all the feedback you've gotten and try to incorporate as much of it as you can. But we only have 4 days left. So I've actually put together a cheat sheet that I forgot I wasn't sharing, but it's relevant now. So I'm going to pull it up. This is something I will send out. This is the Procrastinator's Guide to Story Revisions. And it's really just a page long. I split it into 2, but it's really, I mean, it's split like halfway down. So I wanted to write something that wouldn't take a lot of work to go through, because the whole idea of this is to try to simplify the revision process as much as we can. And essentially what I'm proposing that we do, myself included, is if you still have a lot of work to do to get your story done, or whatever writing project you're on and you're short on time, you want to create a list of all the things that you think you might want to do to make it better, and then pare that list down and figure out which activities you're going to focus on. And the point of this document is to help you get to that point where you have that list of what you want to do, what you want to work on. So I'll just kind of summarize really quickly, or in a few minutes here. You want to start out by making a list, and start off with the changes you want to make, not the changes other people have suggested, the things that you don't like about your story. So my suggestion would be, read your story again from the beginning all the way through. I'm seeing a chat message. I don't know if that's for me. No, it's not, but happy birthday. So start with a list of, I'm sorry. So start reading your story from the beginning, and as you're going through it, jot down anything that strikes you as something that you might want to fix, that you might want to make better, big or small. Don't judge it at this point. Don't weigh the importance of it. If it's, you don't like the name of a character, jot that down. If there's too much dialogue on this page, write that down. If it's, anything that takes you out of the story in some way or bothers you, write it down and just start creating a list. And it could be on a piece of paper, it could be a Word document, it could be an Excel spreadsheet. Use your tool of choice, it doesn't matter. But by the time you get to the end of your story, you should have a decent sized list of things you could fix. Next thing you want to do is, assuming that someone was assigned to you to critique your story, and they did, and they gave you feedback, give that attention next, because that person probably put a lot of time into reading your story and offering suggestions. And whether they gave you the worksheet that Cynthia created, or they just sent you an email, or they put comments directly in the document, go through their comments and add each of those, or at least a summary of each of those, to that list you've been creating of things you could fix. And then if anybody else gave you feedback, do the same thing with their feedback. And in the end, you'll have probably a page or so of things you could fix on your story. And you'll probably realize that in 4 days, you're not going to be able to accomplish all of that. So you're going to have to choose. And that's where this next section comes in, which is prioritize, combine, and estimate. What I'm suggesting here is take your list, and for each item on your list, go through each of these steps. down. This is separate. So look at the first item on your list and rank it as high, medium, or low priority, depending on how much you think making that change is going to make it a positive impact on your story. And it could be something you have a problem with. It could be something that the readers have a problem with. Like, if you have to explain something to the reader, like if you used foreshadowing and it was obvious to you, but it wasn't obvious to the reader, it's probably not the reader's fault. You have a lot more information than the person reading your story does. So give consideration to things that the reader doesn't understand, and try to think of a different way of writing the story or more details you could add that would make that concept clearer, as well as whatever you think is important. And once you've ranked the importance of fixing that issue, ask yourself if you have some idea of how you might fix it. You don't need to know exactly what you're going to write, but you have a general idea. Well, I want to change the character's name to something that is the name of a flower, or I want to turn this section of dialogue into exposition, or so you have some sense, because you want to focus on things where you have some idea of how you're going to fix it, or you're going to spend all your time trying to solve a problem and you might just run out of time without ever figuring it out. Then you want to go through your list of issues and ask yourself if you might be able to use that awesome expression, kill two birds with one stone. Maybe there are multiple issues that could be solved at the same time. Like, you need to add another scene and you need to flesh out one of your characters. So you create a new scene and use that scene to flesh out your character, and you've solved two problems with one activity. It's a way of saving time and resolving multiple problems at once. So now you've got your ranked list of issues. You have an indicator of which ones you think you know how you want to fix, and which solutions could apply to more than one of those issues. And now what you want to do is, next to each of those items, estimate how long you think it'll take to perform that activity. So if you're creating a new scene, maybe that takes 4 hours. If you're renaming a character, maybe that takes 15 minutes. But write down an estimate next to each of the items. And then you want to decide how much time you want to spend revising your story. You've got 4 days to go. So probably you don't want to work on it for the next 96 hours. I wouldn't want to. Maybe you're going to budget an hour a day. Maybe you're going to budget 3 hours a day. Who knows? But it's up to you. Figure out how much time you want to spend on your story. And then, starting with the high priority items on your list, start picking things you want to work on until you've used up the amount of time that you're allowing for yourself. So if you're going to spend 12 hours in the next 4 days and you have 2 activities that are going to take 6 hours each, that's all you have time for. Focus on those, get those done, and it's over. But by actually understanding all the things you could do with your story and then picking the things that are most important instead of just trying to tackle everything, you'll be able to get a lot more results in less time. And ultimately, just keep in mind, this is your story. If you think something will make it better, do it. If somebody else has a suggestion and you're not sure if it's going to help, you're not obligated to take that suggestion. Just show appreciation for people taking the time to offer help, and you decide what you think is going to ultimately help your story be great. So I will send this out a little bit after the meeting, but that is in a nutshell what I'm recommending and what I'm going to follow and already have started following. I've already applied this to the critique that I received and narrowed down which activities from that critique I want to deal with, because I'm not going to be able to get to them all, and I feel like I can do this now. So That's really all I have. I'll open it up if anybody has any thoughts or questions, but keep in mind, Ben has a much more elaborate segment to share. So we just have time for a couple of quick comments if anybody wants to share.
I do. Brad,
Sure.
thank you so much for telling us to reread our story and to focus on what we feel that's what's missing, and then tackle what the person who was assigned to us to review, because I think that's solid information for us to follow. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for this to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see who's waving their hand over there. Anybody else have a comment before we jump over to Ben for a question?
Jump over the bend.
All right, we're jumping. So Ben is going to come from the perspective of the not so procrastinator who just wants to make their story better in the time they have left. Take it away.
All righty. Okay. So let me share my screen here with you guys. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Okay, good. Let's see
Yes.
if I can. Can you still see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so today I'm going to share some revision tips. Revision is kind of a big deal. There's a lot to cover, and it's just not possible to cover everything in 15 minutes or so. So I'll just kind of pick some examples that we could work through and show how you can make your writing better. But I'm going to stick with more of the sentence level. So, and when you work on the sentence level, there's kind of two questions you have to ask when you revise, and is what do I cut, and how do I refine? And if you're kind of asking that and you're not sure what that is, you might be panicking. And then when you realize it's due on Monday, then you're really panicking. So I want to try and give a method to the madness. I'm going to be using something called lenses, very much like passing through your story and searching for one specific thing, and then moving on to the next lens and search through that. So I have a couple tips for you. The first one I'm going to be talking about is stimulus and response lens. And this is really about the movement and emotion that you want in your sentences. And there is a logical formula for this. And it works something like this. We start with an action in the story. Then the character responds or feels it, like it stimulates them. They have a thought process. They have emotions to come involved, and those emotions judge their action, and they create a new action based on that. So that whole thing could be one sentence, or it could be a conglomerate of sentences formed into a paragraph. And so like, well, what are you talking about here? Okay, so here's a really weird example. Let's say the action is your character is getting stabbed, like your main character is getting stabbed. So what's the stimulus? The stimulus is the feel of getting penetrated by a knife. That's awful. And the response is the character is going to, it's going to scream outside. They're going to try and attack the attacker, which kind of goes back to the action. So like the character is committing the action, and it kind of goes back through a stimulus process. And you can, if it's a fight scene, that could go back and forth until there's a point where the character has a thought process of what just happened. They're essentially intellectualizing what they feel, those emotions. And through those emotions,
We can't hear you, Ben.
We lost you.
Thought it was just me, but he froze.
Yes, he froze.
Rose. Somebody thaw him out.
Not a good day for technology.
What was my name?
Hey, Catherine.
Hey.
He is frozen.
Yeah, he's shocked. He's showing emotion. That's
Yeah. Right, okay. So how do we react the fact that he was giving us the stimulus response mode and he's frozen? What do we do?
Maybe we should stimulate each other and
You
Whoa.
should panic.
I'm sure he'll log in.
Now we're gonna wait.
Yeah, 'cause he's gonna log in and log out again.
He had to explain this concept to me. We talked about it prior, and he had to explain this concept to me for a bit. But once I got it, it was actually, it made a lot of sense, because a lot of times we save the reaction for the end, and then you don't know why they're reacting. So
Is he gonna send us this too? Like you're gonna send us yours?
I'm sure he'll have some kind of like application that he wrote just for this group or something crazy like that. So maybe not that elaborate, but he always has
No, I'm
something.
gonna tell everybody, this is where I want to spend my pre-birthday party with this group, okay? This is the party group, yes.
Pretend I got you a cupcake.
Oh, I'm getting them tomorrow, Lydia, I'm getting them tomorrow.
All right.
You're getting them tomorrow because somebody else is getting them for you, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm getting my gluten-free cupcakes tomorrow. But I've got my champagne now.
Hey, Ben's back.
There he
Almost
is.
back.
Sorry about that. My internet died. Wow. So how'd you like the workshop? It was great, right? It was
I was
fantastic.
talking about your stimulus response. We were trying to figure out how to respond to the fact that you froze.
Go. Well, let's get back into it, shall we? Okay. Where did the sentence, or were we up here?
You're there.
Because I think
There.
I was
Yes.
here, right?
Yep.
Can you
Yes.
tell me what I last said? Okay. Okay. So we're talking about
Being
action,
stabbed, being
stimulus.
stabbed and how you react to being stabbed.
Right. Okay. Let's just go into an example. Okay. So did you guys see this example yet?
Nope.
Okay, great. I'll start here. Okay, so here's the example. He heard the bullet whiz past his ear, and as the hunter cocked and shot his rifle. The problem with this is that the action and stimulus is out of order. The stimulus starts, and then halfway through, the hunter cocked, and then he shoots his rifle. And so if I rearrange this so it meets more of this standard, we'll see something magical happen. The hunter cocked his rifle, period. Blam. He heard the bullet whiz past his ear. You're letting the reader feel the anticipation. The hunter cocked his rifle. Ooh, that's not a good sign, right? Because we know what's going to happen next. Blam. And then we're in a suspenseful moment. Like, is it going to hit him? Is it not going to hit him? And you hear the bullet whiz by his ear. That's kind of like, that's a moment of relief, because we've built some of the tension up, released it, and we found the resolution of that tension. So here's another example. Get out of here. She felt as if a hand had entered her chest and clenched her heart. She read the letter. Grandpa had died. Now, this also sounds like a suspenseful sentence, because we reveal the last kernel of information right at the end. So it seems like, oh, it's a cliffhanger. But what we've done is we've started the cart without the horse, essentially. And here's a better way of doing this. She read the letter. Grandpa had died. She felt as if a hand had entered her chest and clenched her heart. This allows the reader to summon up some emotions from their own experience. Because we know when she reads the letter, we've actually read the letter or had a phone call where we had an unfortunate event happen, like our grandparents died, our loved one died. So we already know what that feels like, but then she guides us through how she feels. And through that, we can emphasize with her and know exactly how that feels. And that's a much more impactful sentence than having to reverse everything and starting with the emotion first and then the action later. Okay. So a good way to use this lens is read through your story and find actions that happen after you show emotion. So if you're showing the emotion first and then the action, I honestly did this. I actually had a character like be stunned at seeing something, and I didn't show the reader what that was because I thought that was impactful, and it wasn't. And I rewrote it. So it sounds better now. All right, here's another one. Filter words. All right, so what's the filter word? So I found this blog, it's called The Editing Blog. It's actually interesting website, and it has a article called Filter Words in Fiction. So filter words are verbs that increase the narrative distance, reminding us that what we're reading is being told by someone rather than being experienced or shown through the eyes of the character. So some of these verbs sound like this: noticed, seemed, spotted, saw, realized, okay? And this is how it's done in a sentence incorrectly. I notice the address and realize it's typed on a sticker, the postmark, a smudge of ink in the top right-hand corner. So what's wrong with this? Well, we know that this is actually in first person because we have the I. And if it's a first person, that the character and the narrator are the same thing. So when a character and a narrator are talking about seeing something, you don't have to tell the reader that we noticed it, because they're already noticing it through the narration. So all you have to do is just kind of cut that out a little bit. So here's, this is a better sentence. I wrote bad, but it's actually good. She felt as if a hand had, oops, I'm in the wrong spot. Yeah, pull that back. Here we go. The address is typed on a sticker, the postmark, a smudge of ink in the top right-hand corner. Notice how much this is simplified from almost 3 lines of text down to just 2. And it's simpler, it's more elegant, and it actually does what it's supposed to do. You're not redundant information of I noticed and I realized. It's already insinuated because the reader knows that this is a first person narrative. So here's another example. Earlier that morning, she groaned at the invasive ringtone from her partner's iPhone. She wondered how such a small slab of silicone could produce so much noise. Easy fix. Cut, she wondered. Now you're done. Okay? Stuff like that helps you keep your writing concise, and it's easier and less redundant. So you're not having to remind the reader and also pull away from the action that you want to achieve. Get that immersion flowing. All right. So here, let's see. So if you want to cut down on filter words, look for these types of words in your story. See if they're distancing your point of view, so that if like the narrator or the character are saying these words, maybe you don't need them. Okay. All right, so here we have something called glue words. And some people call these filler words. These are the words that are kind of meaningless and they kind of just stick inside your sentences, like in, the, was, new, make, much, from, with. They tend to chop up your sentence like this, like Jenna hurled the basketball from half court and watched it soar. Okay, it's just it kind of takes away all the meaningful words like hurled, basketball, half court, watched, and split those up. And so if you were to rewrite this, as in terms of revising, you want to reduce the amount. And I did this in 2 sentences. So Jenna hurled, the basketball soared across half court. Okay, that might not be the best grammatical thing, but I took 4 glue words and I reduced it down to 1 and made 2 sentences to do that. And that's something you can want to work on. When you're looking at this lens, try to reduce the number of glue words in each sentence. It might not be possible to get rid of all of them because you're going to need some of them in order to make grammatical sense. But I realized that when I started doing this, it forced me to rethink how to write better. Because honestly, glue words tend to be more conversational. We say these words when we're speaking a lot in conversations. And mostly when I do my rough drafts, it's full of glue words. I actually set up a program to search all these words all at once. And when I watched my story lit up like a Christmas tree full of glue words, I kind of panicked, but I focused on rewriting them and I had a much stronger story when I did it. Okay, here's the last one. Of course, the adverbs are always bad. Stephen King had a famous quote about it. You should always make sure that adverbs are kind of the bane of your writing career. So what's an adverb? It's basically anything that ends with an ly. And here's a quick example. Nika quickly ran across the street. The problem with adverbs is that they're so vague, you don't really understand specifically what they mean, because what is quickly? Is it shuffling her feet forward rapidly? Is it sprinting? Is it on a Segway? And going 25 miles an hour, we don't really know what that is. So always find these types of adverbs and replace with a descriptive word. Mika sprinted across the street, okay? I noticed in my writing, this happens a lot. Sometimes it happens, it kind of comes up. It's kind of a lazy word to use because when you're writing your first draft, those kind of pop in. And that's okay, because you can always go back and just rewrite those. So my lens is always run a little ly search and see how many words have the ly in it. And if you have a whole bunch, then maybe you got to rewrite those. Well, you'll have better descriptive words and replace with better descriptive words in the process. And you'll have a stronger story just by doing that. Okay, so is there a tool to help us? And there is, and I lost it for a second. So let me get back in here. So I need to stop my share, reshare. I'm gonna go over here. Okay, do you guys see this website? Looks like For the Smarter Writer.
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is called Pro Writing Aid, and there is a paid version and a free version. I'm going to be showing off the free version really quick. So if you go up to Use App, click on here. Just have a sample text here. So Pro Writing Aid is kind of like a grammar checker, kind of like Grammarly, but it goes beyond that. There is a grammar and spelling checker, but it also checks for all kinds of stuff. So we had talked about the glue words problem and like, how do you identify glue words? Well, in Pro Writing Aid, there's a little tab here, button called Sticky. And that's what they're talking about, that if you have so many glue words in your sentence are sticky words, sticky sentences, and those are not what you want. So when you click on that, it will actually underline sentences that have a lot of glue words in them, so you can help you with your revision process and be able to rewrite these sentences so that they're not so gluey or sticky, which is also very good. But there's a lot of other tools in here. There's also like the Echoes tool. So when I click on that, what you'll see is repetition happening. What I've read and what I've been critiquing other people's stories, also I have also part of other clubs and I've been critiquing theirs. What I've realized is that some people like to stick with certain phrases all the way through their entire story. And those phrases have different contexts, yet they use the exact same phrase. And they do it from paragraph to paragraph to paragraph. And repetition works if you're trying to do it as a poetic process, but if it's just something that you keep in mind when you're writing it and you just want to use that phrase over again, you might want to try and create some variety to your writing. So it'll actually underline stuff that's close, like ground, arm, slug, like another arm over here. And sometimes, repeating words is unavoidable, but we do have to do it sometimes. There's also overused words. Like if you're using the word could like 15 times in your story, maybe you should probably cut that, right? Replace it with something else or even cut the whole sentence. There's even a readability. It actually will grade you on your grammar and so forth. So if you're trying to write for a higher audience, maybe a 12th grader so much, this will tell you exactly where you are in your reading level. And I'm kind of in like the 5th grade, so I probably have to elevate my writing just a little bit. There are a few other tips, more reports, like sensory. So sensory, it's evaluating words that show like sight, touch, sound, taste. And most of the time, everyone has usually a 50% of sight words and very little in taste words. We tend to describe things as visually, but we don't necessarily describe things as tactile or sound-wise, or even other types of sensories like pain, pressure, weather. There's even stuff like how your body feels like in space, essentially, or even gravity. If you're working on a science fiction, like how does gravity feel like? So this kind of helps you see where you have your sensory words and where you can boost those up. to get a more visceral style. We also have a little bit of dialogue work. It can highlight areas where you do have dialogue, and it can also help you with dialogue tags. So if you, like, say, if you have said 150 times, that might be too much. So you're going to want to try to reduce that amount so you're not using said all the time, that kind of stuff. There is something I really like is once you like highlight something, there's something called the Word Explorer. It'll try and give you a couple of thesaurus words, similar words that you might want to put in, because maybe if you're struggling for the right word, like you don't know what that right word is, you could try the Word Explorer, and it's going to open up. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a very like intense word search deal. Not only does it give you like definitions, it'll give you like verb definitions. It also has a reverse dictionary, so it'll give you the opposite of those words. There's also a thesaurus with synonyms, contextually related, so you can find words that have similarities to them. There's all types of tips, like electronic terms. If this is used, if you're writing a science fiction and you need to figure out some electronic stuff, this will actually go in and give you really detailed information about technical manuals and stuff like that. Or if you're doing like online gaming or psychology, like maybe your character is a psychologist. These are all words used by in psychology or psychology terms, right? So you can and these lists will change depending on the context of the word itself. There's also alliteration, all kinds, for every type of thing. If you want to do verbs, it'll give you all types of stuff there. They'll give you some cliches, alternate spellings, or rhyming. So if you want something to rhyme on the end or the start, it'll give you those. Alternate types of pronunciation. I don't even know what collocations are, but there's a lot of them, even like common phrases. So if you want to use this word in a 3-word phrase, just click on that. There you go. You've got all these phrases you can try out. And one of the things I like the most is the examples. So if I click on examples from books, you'll see this word used by other writers, and there's actual quotes. And sometimes you'll see like Ian Fleming. And this is a really great way to, if you need a quote for something, like if you have a deep word like death or life, you can find a quote about that. And that's pretty much it for the word dictionary. Let me check this. Okay. And we can also do structure. And then what it does, actually I have to do this. There's also a summary feature where it kind of evaluates everything that you have and puts it into a summary report. And it'll give you the analytics of your story. Same about ProWriting 8, it's not a word meaning generator. It doesn't understand what you're writing. It just looks at the grammar and the technicality, and it does a little bit of pattern recognition to understand what your words are about. So a lot of this is like sentence length, readability, if it's pacing or not pacing. If it has a lot of slow pacing, it'll mark that up and tell you this is kind of slow. Maybe you need to speed this up. There's also, it'll check your quote consistency. Are you using quotes properly? Are you starting quotes and not ending them? It'll show you that. It's kind of a godsend if you have 40,000 words and maybe you've only didn't end all your quotes on some of your pages. So with Grammar Check, it'll give you some possible issues that you might have. The writing style will give you a little score and give you a description of what you're trying to do. It'll tell you if you're doing the passive voice. And it'll have a little graph here. If you're using passive voice, it'll be a little mark. And you can actually go and find that sentence that's using passive voice and then turn it to active voice, which is a lot easier. There's also emotional tells. These are like, I feel good, or I feel happy, or I feel grateful. Those aren't necessarily descriptive. You might want to use a more poetic way of writing it, but sometimes you just want to say, I feel good. But that's, it helps you to know where those words are in case you need to revise those. It'll also tell you weak adverbs that you're using that are not great. It'll mark those up for you so we can go back and provide more descriptive writing, right? And it keeps going along. It'll tell you a sentence length. You want something that kind of goes up and down. If you have sentences that are kind of straight all the way across, that means that you're not really using sentences effectively. You're just kind of monotoning it. If you have peaks and valleys, it's showing that you have focal points where your paragraph meets, and then it kind of expands, and it focal points again, and then it expands. So that's kind of like, you want this nice rolly effect. You can go in a couple more. The readability check will just kind of give you, like, my little test story is a grade 4 reading. So that's great. I don't know if I'm salted or not. But I can keep going down here. It'll give you a pacing check. So down here it says, this little graph is kind of faint box. You can't really see the outline, but it says your document. So this is basically the start all the way to the end. And then these little blocks here are where the pacing is slowing down. And that might be because you're doing narration or exposition, and that's fine. But if you have a lot of giant blocks all clustered together in one place, maybe you need to push those out, maybe add some more dialogue in to speed up your writing. It's okay to have slow pacing, just as long as it's spread out and not being bogged down in one spot. You can do consistency checks, making sure you're using the acronyms properly. If you use like one acronym in one paragraph and you completely change it in another paragraph, ProWriting Aid will find those for you and help you make sure everything's consistent. And of course, like your glue words, I tend to be pretty high on my rough drafts, so I'm at a 47%. So I got to work in, try to rewrite my sentences to get those glue index or the glue words down. Okay, and it also gives you a word cloud, and this kind of shows you visually which of your words are you using the most. And if it's the main character, which is Skinny, that's okay. And if there's like, certain key points like the arm, he gets shot, there's other characters, they're in the desert, there's boulders, that's all part of the setting, that's great. If you have giant words that say the or was, that's bad. It means you've used was like 150,000 times, and that's not what you need. Also go through like dialogue checks and dialogue distribution. It tells you how much dialogue you're putting into your story, which are tagged, which are not tagged. Sometimes if you don't have tagged dialogue, it can confuse the reader trying to figure out who's saying who. So maybe it helps you analyze how much writing you're doing or how much dialogue you're doing. And it just keeps going and going. Let's see, I think that's it. So that is ProWriting Aid. There's a lot of other features. I'll put the address in the chat so you can go check it out. It's free. The ProWriting Aid allows you up to, the free version allows for 500 words to be put in the editor. So 500 words in here, it'll check that. And if you'd have to delete it, put another 500 words in, that kind of thing. It can also open up files, but I have to kind of double check on that. But that is my presentation.
What does the app go for?
Okay, so that's a good question. There's a monthly cost, and there is a monthly cost. Let's see if I can go back and find it. They kind of hide the pricing here. So here's the deal. It's a monthly cost. I'm gonna guess it's around $30 a month, which is like crazy. I wouldn't do that. What I did is I paid for the lifetime membership, and I'm pretty sure I paid $250 for it. And I thought that was a good, and I didn't know this. If you do NaNoWriMo and you can complete your 50,000 words, you will get a discount for ProWriting Aid. So that's great. So, and I recommend using this. Now, is ProWriting Aid going to replace Cynthia? No. They will not replace Cynthia.
I was kind of hoping it would. Put me out of work.
Maybe you should be using it, right? I mean, it's a great tool for editors because it speeds up their workflow. But here's the thing, like it's just technical computer stuff. It's seeing the mechanics of your sentences, and it's going to do what it's going to do. If you're doing more artistic work and lots of repetition and more narrative stuff, then it's going to be some issues. And you're going to have to take whatever its advice at a great assault, really, essentially. Okay, so anybody have any questions?
Offer a free trial.
I don't know if it has a free trial. I don't know. Let me, I'm gonna just
For
put this
those
in.
of us that need to be ready in a week to offer free trial.
Yeah. Well, they have the free version, so you can you make an account, you set up an account, and then you can use the free version anytime you like. It's only limited to 500 words at a time. So you can just do it in chunks. So like if you're gonna revise, that's fine, because you need to focus on one chunk of your story, work on that, then move on to the next one.
I'm worn out listening.
Is your mind blown again? Did I blow
That's
your guys'
amazing,
minds?
amazing, amazing, amazing. Just knowing that there's something out there that will be behind you, like or yes, or good for you, or It's good.
Yeah, and I just read that it works with Scrivener.
It does. So yeah. So
There you
it'll
go.
so like you write in Scrivener, you save it, you close Scrivener, and then you open up ProWriting 8. There's a desktop version, so you just open up ProWriting 8, the desktop version. Open up your Scrivener file. You do all your edits. You save it, and then once you open up Scrivener, all those changes are made. So that's how it
Very
works.
nice.
Yeah, and there's also modes for ProWriting 8. So if you're writing science fiction or you're writing literary fiction, you can set those up, and you can read that up on like the blogs of ProWriting 8. But it'll show you like you can do that, and I think it'll check certain things for you. So if you're doing like creative writing versus business writing, there's different modes for that, and it'll kind of check that for it'll check literary work differently than it checks business writing. If that makes sense. Okay.
It does.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? That was a lot to take in. Was
Are
that
you gonna
useful?
send us something? Yes, it's very useful.
Oh,
Are you gonna
good.
send us a
Okay.
reminder? I like
Uh,
that program you just sent, you just showed us.
Oh, I thought I put it in, I put a link in the chat,
Oh,
but
yes, I see it. I see it.
but I will send the presentation I just showed you to Brad to email with his procrastinating guide.
Yeah.
Because we're all procrastinators. Can I tell you how procrastinated I am? Because I've been searching for a job, but I haven't been searching for a job. So this week I'm like, I need to search for a job, and I put out 150 applications, and I have a very strong job interview tomorrow. I have my second interview tomorrow, and I think I'm probably going to get it. So I'm like, this is great. Great for procrastination.
Hope you get it.
Congratulations, yes.
Yeah.
You got it. Come on, send that energy. You got it.
There you go. Got some energy. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
This was great. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Are we done?
I think we're done.
Done.
Washed
Oh,
up.
that was wonderful.
That was awesome, Ben.
That
Thank
was
you.
awesome. Starting out with Jessica.
We ended
and
on
her
time,
them,
guys.
they, theirs.
There are 2 speaking slots still open for Monday. Think about if you want to give a speech. Just saying.
Enjoy the
Okay,
rest of your
thank you.
birthday, Lola. Don't get crazy now.
I am gonna be crazy. I'm gonna be 70 years old tomorrow. Yes! 70 years here. Yes.
Lola,
You
is
said
this your real birthday?
17?
This is my real birthday.
17,
present.
right?
This is the day that I appeared for real. Okay. Susan wanted to know if it was for real. This is
For real.
Tomorrow's the day I appeared for real. 70 years before.
I
Yes.
don't believe it. I just don't. 70 is the new 30, dude.
Who
I
said
tell
that?
you, I had so many meetings I was supposed to go to, but I wasn't gonna miss this party. No.
Hey, the only singer here is Leslie, though. I mean, you could.
Oh, Leslie, yes. Oh my God. I don't know if you've heard her CD, but I got a CD from Leslie. Her music is amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Oh,
Yes.
you got to put your CD in the chat, Leslie.
What do you want? Oh, my CD? Well, okay.
Yeah. Just put it in.
It's called, let's see. It's called
something.
I have to oh yeah. Standing on the Wide-Eyed Edge. Okay. let's see.
Fabulous.
Standing on the wide. The title
Wide.
is taken from a poem of a friend of mine who's quite a good poet, amazing poet. Wide-eyed edge.
Standing on the
I think I
wide-eyed
got it
edge.
right. Is it standing or is it? I think it's standing on the
It is
wide-eyed.
standing, yes.
Yeah.
Right edge.
It's
What would
a
make it
jazz-
better would be of sobriety. No.
It's wonderful. I highly recommend you listen to it. You can listen to it again and again. I know I did.
And is it under Leslie Sharp, Sarah Moon? What name?
Yeah, Leslie. I'll write that down. It's not easy to find though. I did have a site that
Found it.
featured
You found it? Yeah, okay, Ben found it.
Oh, okay.
Get it, get it.
Ben
Oh my
found it.
goodness.
It's on Amazon, right?
Everybody.
Is it? I don't even remember. Well, it may have been, yeah, but I haven't sent them any copies, so I have the copies
Good
now.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Whoever said good night, good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Hi. I'm like, where are you going, Susan?
I'm
Thank you.
not.
Good night, Cookie.
Hey, what's your dog's name, Fernanda?
Dancing on the wide-eyed edge. There you go.
Is it dancing?
Dancing on the wide-eyed edge. I thought that wasn't right, standing. Dancing on the wide-eyed edge, yeah. Anyway, I have a bunch of copies and whoever wants one, I'll just let me know. You're my buddies, so.
How much?
I'll send you money. I do.
How much?
Cookie.
Come on, Leslie. She's a musician. She's an artist. They don't know how to, they don't
We
know
don't
how to
know
step
how.
out and say, hey,
They
send me
don't know how
10
to
bucks.
monetize.
Send me $10 and I'll basically, it costs for shipping. Say that, say something, Leslie.
$10 would maybe make it all break even, yes.
See, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, but do you
It's
want to eat
amazing.
steaks?
Yes, I do, but it's probably not gonna happen from this album. I've got other fires and other irons and other fires, so.
And she's an amazing singer too. Amazing.
Happy
Aw.
birthday, Lola. I'll spare you. I'll spare you the singing.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lola. I really wasn't expecting that and I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate the music. Are you kidding? Oh,
It took a while to find a CD player, I'll tell you.
I did. I had to go get a CD. I had to go buy a CD player to put it in and play it. But it was worth it. It was worth it.
Are almost all of you writing a story for the anthology?
Yeah, yeah, but
So
like
you're-
we're talking about the procrastination, it's not the procrastination, it's just that District 1 has all these different activities that we get involved in. And then all of a sudden that everything is due at the same time.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And talking
Is the
about a job,
truest.
I had to write a curriculum for a company on how to have crystal clear communication and leadership, which I had to do. And then I had to find somebody to, what is it? I had to get on Fiverr to find somebody to actually create. It was just so much going on after that first draft.
Hmm. Yeah,
Ben was
actually,
looking for a job. You should have asked him.
yeah.
Could have been your contractor.
There you go. You know, it's interesting. I think like the pandemic really kind of helped me understand what I want to do. Like before, like I was really stressed out with like my jobs, and I had a really bad job and I had a better job, and then when I didn't have a job for a while, like in 2020, I was just like, oh my God, this is like amazing. And I realized like I got more into the writing community and realized like this is something I'd rather be doing. And I'm now pushing towards a goal in about 5 years to become an indie author and do that on my own instead of having to work for someone else. So that's my plan now.
That's
And I'm already-
awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Like when like 2020 is a weird year, like for all of us, right? It was, some of it was great, some of it was not so
Yep.
great for people. I just kind of seemed to benefit from it, and I took advantage of it, and I kind of almost use it as a creative sabbatical. So I was really studying more on the writing and learning how to be a better writer. And it's definitely, I think it's changed my life really. So
That's awesome. That's
Oh, we
awesome.
like the sound of that.
I think
Mhm.
2020 changed everybody's life, whether it was good or bad. but it
Yeah.
changed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you've got that very formed concept and idea in your mind, like they say, a golden mind is a golden light. So whatever it is that you have in your mind, you get to live. So you got clarity.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's definitely clarity because like you can't do that when you're working 9 to 5 or even more. I was working 12 hours a day and you don't have time to think about that stuff. And that was the moment where everything kind of went away. I was like, that's a moment of clarity. Like, oh, this is how life could be instead of what it is, you know?
And you made it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
made it to that. Well, again, opportunity comes in so many different forms. And where one person finds it a total disaster, another person can find all the pearls and all the jewels and all the wonderful things out of a catastrophe, in this situation, a pandemic. But we did have the time to be still and to acknowledge and recognize what we truly desire to do. During that whole year, we found out what it is that we truly love.
Here, here.
Which is a good thing. Hey, Ben, when you decide to go after that larger novel that you're going to be putting together, don't forget about, you can bring it to Rough Riders Extra and share all the wonderful things that you have learned. Okay, because I know